Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I have Josh Yohe with The Athletic and Joe Bartnick, comedian extraordinaire, alongside. And gentlemen, so we don't have Marcus Pettersson. We went through the trade last week. And then the Penguins had some bad news whenever Sidney Crosby got hurt against the Devils. And Josh, I'm sure, can extrapolate on what's going on there, because I think we'll probably have some Canadians listening to this podcast trying to get some insight. But then we had a nice gutsy win on Friday, and then the Flyers did not go our way. But yeah, let's first get to the elephant in the room, the Sidney Crosby injury. Josh, what do you know?
Yeah, Sid actually did a press conference just a few minutes ago from when we're recording this up in Montreal, and he said he's going to try to play on Wednesday against Sweden in the opener of the Four Nations tournament. Not really a shock. I don't think people understand the pressure that's on him when you're the captain of Team Canada, and when Canada's all-time record when you play in international events is 45-5, for God's sake. And this is the last chance he'll ever have, probably, to play for Team Canada on Canadian soil. So it's a big deal to him, as it should be. We can talk about the Four Nations tournament and how big of a deal it is maybe compared to the Olympics. And I think we agree it's hardly the Olympics, but it's still important to him. He's going to try to play. The injury, I think I know what the injury is. I'm not going to come out and say it specifically because I actually don't know. It's just an observation. It's obviously a left arm injury of some kind. And I watched him practice on his own a couple of times last week. He couldn't shoot the puck. I mean, it looked like me taking a wrist shot. Like, it was very little velocity when he was shooting the puck. He clearly did not look himself in that regard. From what I have heard, he is feeling considerably better a few days later. I'm sure he will try to play. And I'm going to just say right now, because I know somewhere out there's a Penguins fan that said, wait a second, he didn't play in Philly in New York. Why should he be playing for Canada this week? Like, well, first of all, it's a week later. So if he was hurt, maybe he's better now. And also, let's not act like Sidney Crosby owes us anything, for God's sake. I mean, if he, and I don't think he, just took the weekend off to get healthy for the tournament. I don't look at it that way, because I don't think that's the case. If he could have played, there's no way he's missing a game in Philadelphia if he can play. It was obviously deemed that he was hurt enough that he couldn't play. Perhaps he's feeling better a few days later, which I think he is. But this idea that Sid's like prioritizing something over the Penguins, I've already seen it from a few people. Give me a break. He owes none of you anything. And if he is able to play, he is going to play. So obviously he's dealing with something.
I absolutely agree with everything Josh just said. There's a lot to unpack. First of all, there's just the vitriol. I mean, we can talk in a couple of minutes about the defenseman we got from Utah. People just attacking that. It's like, save your hatred for the Steelers or whatever you call that minor league baseball team. If we're a happy bunch here, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, Sid owes us nothing. I will say this though, I hated the fact Imama was hurt, because I thought, no Sid, no Gino, no Rusty. If there was ever a night to paralyze somebody in Philadelphia without any, and even the backup goaltender, any retribution, who cares? And we didn't get a chance to, and we didn't do it. I was what a lost evening as far as I was concerned.
That's nice.
I would love to see the little what Konechny's going hard. Oh, look, take out his skates. Boom. Out for 6 weeks. Yeah, we just couldn't do. I mean, I absolutely despised that Flyer game. I get in the car to listen. Rusty, screw what? As soon as Rusty, it's like, well, I mean, are we allowed to forfeit? I mean, I was even wondering. I couldn't see it anywhere. Who wore the third A, or they only had two A's?
Raquel.
Okay, Raquel. Yeah. I mean, we almost didn't have any people that wear A's.
Well, Carlson's wearing an A. I don't know if he's the leader of young players that you won't wear in the A necessarily, even though I like him. But yeah. The lineup was. And you know what's the sad thing about?
They should have won.
Yes.
That's the even sadder thing. And I think Staggy said it, and I hate to throw the kid under the bus, but it was like, if Ned would have played, I think they win that game.
Maybe. Now you're probably right. I thought the last two games, in terms of guts and defensive play and defensive effort, it was probably their two best games of the season. They played so well in New York. against a Rangers team that had been playing better lately. They just took it to them, and they absolutely should have won in Philadelphia. They badly outplayed the Flyers. I give that group of Penguins and Mike Sullivan too. I give them a lot of credit for what they did the last 2 games. Look at the line. No Crosby, no Malkin, no Rust. Those are probably your 3 best players,
By far. It's
yeah.
not even close.
And you're not a good game. You're not a good
no, I
team.
take that back. I'm sorry, Josh.
Raquel.
Raquel's been playing great. Yeah.
You're without 3 of your 4 best players on the road. I thought they played with so much tenacity. I really respect the way they played in those 2 games. And yeah, the Philly game, they just frankly got really unlucky. I mean, sometimes that happens. And we see it with these guys out. Even when they're healthy, they're not a great finishing team. They just have to work so hard to create offense right now. But I thought it was gutsy. And what really hurt, if we still want to keep this alive, which I know most people roll their eyes at this, if they would have beaten Philly the other night, they'd be 4 points out of a playoff spot.
I know.
And I know realistically the odds of them making the playoffs are probably 5 or 10% or whatever. So I realize that is what it is. But they actually had a great opportunity. All the teams around them lost the couple of days leading up to the weekend. It was all right there for them. So that one I think stung a little bit. It always stings when you play that hard and you still lose. And also they didn't take anybody out, which obviously Joe was hoping for.
Absolutely. A couple more things on the weekend games. I thought that Friday night in Madison Square Garden, I thought they played like it was game 6 of a playoff game. Yeah. Their effort was absolutely phenomenal. I don't know because their dads were there or what, but I mean, you were proud to be a Penguin fan that night. About the Flyers, God damn, do they stink?
Oh,
I mean, they got lucky to win that game.
Yes,
and we didn't have our guys. We literally didn't have our 3 of our 4 best players, and they barely. And the guy I hate the most on that team is Hathaway. I think Hathaway's a garbage human being, and the fact that he scored, it just makes me absolutely sick.
Well, I was very excited when he signed with Philly. I actually tweeted that day that man is a born Philadelphia Flyer. That's actually the perfect organization for him. So I actually thought it was great when he signed with them.
Oh, absolutely. Me too. I thought it was like I think I wrote the same thing in Pro Hockey News. I definitely said on Puck Off like 30 times. I mean, he's garbage. The thing I hated was when they got Delorier, because I love Delorier as a player. Yeah. And I was like, now he has backup. Now he can be even more of a dick. Because Delorier, I forget who we got from Anaheim. And I was like, the guy we should have got was Delorier in that trade. Because Sullivan would have actually played him because he kills penalties. He actually had a hat trick that year. And we'd finally have a tough guy that could win a fight. But no, what happened to Mama? Is he really hurt or what?
Yeah, I think he is. I don't know the specific. I don't think it's super serious, but he left during the Rangers game. Of course, we did not see him against Philly. And if you think that game bothered you, Joe, I assure you, number 87 sitting in the press box in Philadelphia watching the Penguins lose to the Flyers, I promise you it bothered him more than anybody. There's nothing he enjoys more than playing in that building. The statistics speak for themselves. That's one of those games. If he's playing, I almost guarantee you they would have won that game because he's always good for at least a couple of points in that building. But I give the Penguins credit in general for how they've played in the last week or so. They had that stretch out west. Joe and I were both there in person in Anaheim to see it. Those games against Anaheim, Seattle, and San Jose, I think for all intents and purposes, end of the season because you can't get 0 points in those 3 games against those 3 awful teams. But I give the Penguins credit. Sid wins the game in Utah in overtime. Then they come home and beat Nashville, get a point against a really good Devils team. Then you go to MSG and maybe get your best win of the season. So I give them a lot of credit. Maybe they're not good enough to be a playoff team. Maybe they're fatally flawed, but you can't say they're not trying. I mean, the effort level was absolutely there until the very end. And now at least I'm curious to see how they play when the second half of the season or whatever we want to call it, whenever it resumes after this tournament. Their first 4 games after the tournament, guys, home to the Capitals, home to the Rangers, at the Flyers, home to the Flyers. That will get your attention. That's their 3 biggest rivals right off the bat in 4 games. So we'll know what kind of a pulse they have left, I think, just based on how they play in those 4 games.
Now, is Rusty going to be back, and is Gino going to be back? Because I think that makes obviously makes a huge difference.
My sense is yes and yes. Gino's already skating. I think the plan all along was for him to come back at the end of the break. But he skated a couple of times. He looked fine. And I'm basing this simply on what Mike Sullivan said. He was asked if the Penguins expect Brian Rust to be ready when the break is over, and his response was yes. So I don't think Rust is dealing with a serious injury. Brian Rust, as you know, Joe, he plays so damn hard that he just always gets hurt. He's always nicked up. And obviously he had something they didn't want him playing through in Philadelphia. But I don't think it's anything major. So you could be close to a healthy lineup, really, when the season resumes in a couple of weeks, barring anybody, of course, getting hurt in 4 nations. It looks like, as of right now, everybody should be good to go.
Yeah. The team, to me, I don't know if you guys feel this way, and I lived it because I know, Joe, you watch every game, and Josh, this was before you were probably covering them full time, but Sid's rookie year, they started off so bad. And it was just because they had kind of slapped together a bunch of older guys, and it just didn't work. And then all of a sudden, about this time of year, I remember it starting to kind of come together. Like, you could see them turning around. I'll have to do a deep dive maybe to look at their win streaks and everything. But I remember at the end of that season being like, I think this team's figuring it out. And that's kind of the vibe I got from, a guy who was sitting there saying, we need to fire Sullivan because the message isn't getting through. So all of a sudden going like, I think Sullivan's message is getting through and he might be the right guy for this job. What do you think?
I think Sullivan's definitely the right guy for the job, unless Rick Tocchet wants to show up.
Yeah.
And this is nothing against Sully. I love Sullivan. I just think if Tocchet's the only guy I would want if it's not Sullivan. If it's not going to be Tocchet, then I can't think of anybody I want to coach my hockey team more than Sully. I don't know where you stand on that, Josh.
No, I mean, if you were watching the last couple of games, I think it's hard to question Mike Sullivan right now. And I'm not saying he's perfect. He's made decisions I don't necessarily agree with. But look at the roster he has right now. Look at some of these rosters he was forced to use in the last few days. I don't know how much of a difference people think coaching makes, but I promise you having a great roster is more important. Not that coaching isn't important. It is. The Penguins are rebuilding right now. That they don't call it that. The fans don't really call it that because you still see Crosby and Malkin and Letang and Carlson. This is a rebuild. This is what it looks like. It really started when they sold off Jake Gensel about a year ago at this time. That's what's happening right now. And that's why they've lost a lot of games this year and why they haven't really looked themselves, because they are rebuilding, bottom line. And it might get worse. The trade deadline's March 7th. Matt Grzelcyk might get traded. That might not seem like a big deal, but he actually is a pretty big deal for this team right now. He's running the power play. He's a top 4 defenseman and a pretty good one at the moment. They might be without him. I don't think Rickard Rakell is going to get traded. Anything's possible. There are other people on this team who might get traded as well, so we might see even more of it. But you're right, and back to your point, Corey. This has always been a team. Well, not always, but usually a team that is better in the second half of the season. We've seen it time and time again. Look at the Penguins' record in March since Sidney Crosby's been here. It's extraordinary. They always heat up in the second half. So maybe we are seeing that again. I don't know. They could also fade completely and get a top 5 pick, and I wouldn't be shocked. But I'm really impressed with how they've played and just the commitment to defense. And also, I can't deny, Joe, from the second Tristan Jarry was banished to Wilkes-Barre, this team's been better. It's absolutely undeniable. You're talking statistically, the eye test, whatever. Ned has played really, really well, and they probably do win that game if he plays in Philly on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think they do win that game in Philly. If they just, end up 6 points out, 8 points out, 10 points out, I'm fine with this whole season. If they end up if they do go on a little streak and we keep Raquel and a couple guys come up and we end up 3 points out, I'm going to jump off a bridge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From all the games, from the West Coast swing to Jari, to just everything that and all the remember the first 3 months of the season, the 2-0 was like, it's like we were up 2-0. It's like we were losing 3-0. Like all of that blown crap, all of Carlson's crap. If we end up like, then we draft like 16th or something, I'll be like, you got to be kidding me. So
mark my words, I think that's going to happen. Like, that's how I feel about this team. They're going to end up like short. And Joe, I kind of wanted, this might tee you off on a rant here, but I did a Twitter poll asking Penguin fans. I said, would you rather make the playoffs and have a worse draft pick, or miss the playoffs and have a better draft pick? And sadly, 55% of the people want to miss the playoffs. And
yeah, I think those people are deranged.
Yeah,
I honestly, if you're one of them, I don't mean you personally. I mean,
No.
then I think you're wrong, because there is nothing like playoff hockey. I watched that goddamn Super Bowl yesterday. It didn't have 1 ounce of energy, like a game 1 of a playoff hockey, even a game 4, even when a team gets swept.
Mm-hmm.
There's still more energy in a playoff hockey game. So anyone who thinks that they'd rather, no, I'd rather get swept in a playoff series.
Corey, I voted on your poll because I liked it. It was a good question, and I also just was curious to see the answers. That's why we vote on Twitter polls, right? Just to see
the answer.
Yeah, that's the beauty of them. If you want to see the results, you actually have to vote, if I'm not mistaken. No, so I voted make the playoffs, because why wouldn't you want them to make the playoffs? I am so tired of these people. Well, you got to tank now and get a top 5 pick. First of all, it's a shitty draft. Okay, that Mario Lemieux's not in this draft. Just so everyone knows, and I understand. Sure, it would absolutely help to have a top 5 pick. And is it for the best that the lottery ball goes their direction, that they get lucky when the draft lottery comes? Sure, of course, any Penguins fan should want that. But you're still going to have a first-round pick. In fact, you're going to have 2 probably this year. You have 29 draft picks in the next 3 years. So you're already building something. You've got prospects on the way. That's great. I don't know. I've had a lot of fans get irritated with me over the years. They don't like when I tell them how to be a fan. So I try not to, flex my muscles in that regard too much. But let me tell you something. If you're a fan of a team, you should be cheering for your team to win and to make the playoffs, especially if you love Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. Like, do you want the last time they ever play in the playoffs to be Game 7, Madison Square Garden, losing in overtime? Like, I would hope not. I would hope you'd want to see those guys in the postseason one last time. And of course, it's unlikely this season. I can read the standings. I've covered this team all year. I'm aware that they don't look like a playoff team, but they're still within 6 points. Of course, you should still want them to make the playoffs. Why not? So maybe you're picking, 18th instead of 10th, or 22nd instead of 14th. Like, in the grand scheme, it's probably not as big of a deal as people make it out to be.
No, it's some kind of, and I'm not a psychologist, and I didn't stay at a Holiday
God,
Express last night. There's some kind of psychological reasoning why people, we might as well just tank. Like, it's just stupid. And
right.
Especially with Sid and Gino, and there's no such, and the teams that absolutely tank, and we mentioned this 30 times on this show, are the teams that haven't come back in 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep Sid and Gino. I don't care about Letang as much, and certainly don't care about Carlson, but you got to keep Sid and Gino, Rusty, and hell, maybe even Raquel at this point. You got to start from somewhere. You can't have 19 guys all drafted in the first 2 rounds.
Right.
And besides, who the hell thinks who other than your first round draft pick, and even that can be look at you, Connor Bedard. Even that could be wrong. So you're going to worry about the draft in February. Worry about winning a hockey game.
Yeah, we're talking like the difference between maybe pick number 14 probably and pick number 18. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And from everything I've been told about this draft, and I luckily am teammates with people at The Athletic who actually are cover these prospects and know a lot more about the prospects than I do. There are 4 slam dunk prospects in this draft. 4. So if you get a top 4 pick, great. Well, guess what? The Penguins probably aren't going to get that regardless. It's not a particularly good draft by all accounts. And people we get too obsessed with prospects and draft picks in general. Yes, the Penguins need them right now, and they've got them on the way, and that's great. We all know this. But I feel like everybody kind of gets obsessed with the idea of designing a team if they were the general manager. And that might be fun and all, but no, you guys are absolutely correct. There's still something to be said for winning games and having something of a winning culture. And you're right, Joe. Look at the teams that have completely tanked in the last decade, whether it be Chicago or Detroit for a while. Guess what? They've never really come back. Whereas teams like the Rangers and the Kings, who, granted, they haven't won a cup in a while either, especially the Rangers, but they got good again in a hurry. The Capitals probably is the best example. They're the best record in hockey right now, and they didn't do some full rebuild. They you're just smart about it, right? Yes, you bring in certain assets, but it's all about making good decisions as a general manager. It's all about developing those young players. You don't need some 5-year plan where you're doing nothing but selling. So I think Dubas has done what he's had to do the last year, and I think he's been right for doing it. But yeah, to sit there and just be rooting against the Penguins because you want to get that top 5 pick, and that's so important. It's not really the way it works in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, take your pirate fan mentality and get the F out of PPG Arena.
And I think that's part of it, actually.
Yeah, exactly. It's all bullshit. Yeah. I don't accept. I don't accept. We play over 500. I don't accept. I want to see. I want to be in meaningful games at the end of the season. I want to make the goddamn playoffs, and that's it. And all it really took this season, because we got our power play together, thank you, David Quinn, was a goaltender that did let in the first shot every freaking time they dropped the puck. That's basically all it took. Or a goaltender like, it wouldn't make a big save ever. And I know it's like, goaltending 70% of the game, unless you don't have it's 100%. I'm not trying to blame the goaltender for everything because, our defense didn't look like they wanted to play defense. They had Terrian on the game the other night. It was great. But, there's a lot of cooks to this shit stew. But, it didn't take very much. So we don't need to break the whole thing down. I want to talk about some stuff that happened a lot of stuff happened off the ice this week. First being, I like that Vlad kid. I think he might be able to step in and play a little bit. He's definitely better than Ryan Shea. I'm not going to try to pronounce his Russian name or whatever country he's from.
Me neither.
But 6 foot 2, 6'1", 6'2", 195. I'll take that. I like Dubas getting a little tougher on the back end. We saw we saw Emil Benstrom this week. And you know what I say about Emil Benstrom? How the hell wasn't he up before Matt Nieto?
Oh.
I know Benstrom didn't do anything, but at least he looked like he might do something other than grow penalties. A mustache.
Sully's big on his guys who kill penalties. That's really all that is. But I don't know how to pronounce the new player's name either. I cover the team, but I can't pronounce that name. I'm looking at it right now. I know he's from Belarus, but what I like about him, I've seen him play once or twice a little bit. 2nd round pick of Florida. He's only 23 years old, and I know they really like him from what I've been told. They were pretty excited to get him. And this does a couple of things. It pushes people like Ryan Shea down on the depth chart, which is probably a good thing. Also, if you want to trade Grzelcyk, at least you have a reasonable NHL player to fill into the roster the rest of the season. But I really like that Kyle has been doing this with young players all season, whether it be bringing in Cody Glass for nothing, Tomasino for a 5th round pick or whatever it was. You're taking chances on guys with pedigree, guys who are 1st and 2nd round draft picks, who have a lot of theoretically untapped potential. So I think it is really smart business on his part to do stuff like this. And you're not going to hit on all these guys, but you're going to hit on some of them if you take chances like that. And I think it's only in the Penguins' best interest. That's a way he can help this rebuild without, really hurting the product at all as it currently stands. And there's something to be said for that.
Well, Ponomarev, though, came up, and I mean, he showed nothing.
No,
I did not like that at all. I don't know. I mean, because basically, they weren't playing the Panthers or Tampa Bay. They were playing the Flyers. I mean, the Flyers,
right.
It's like he should have been able to do a few things against that team.
Yeah, it's only one game, but I wasn't very impressed at all with him. Koivunen is the more intriguing of the two. I always lump them together just because they came in the same trade from Carolina. But I think Koivunen is certainly the guy with the higher ceiling. We've seen that with his goal scoring touch in Wilkes-Barre. He just plays a really smart offensive game. He's got the high skill level, so I think he's probably the guy who may project to be a more impactful NHL player. And, we'll give him a chance, but that certainly was not a great performance in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm not like gonna throw him out. Throw him out. I'm just like, because I think his stats for like his 10 NHL games have not actually been. But he's he goes in as a third liner, and the other kid they say is a top 6. So okay, you brought up Cody Glass's name. Cody Glass, you got to do more with all of the ice time you're getting. I mean, if you're down with the Matt Nieto stats and you're playing second line, you're playing second power play, you're filling in for Gino. I mean, you got to be lucky at some point to get a couple points just by luck.
I know, and the thing about him, like he does do a lot of things well. You watch him play. Like he's really good defensively. He can skate. Like he has all the physical attributes. He can't finish.
Yeah,
he
and Josh,
just can't
I'm sorry to
finish at
cut you
all.
off, but I'm sick of guys like because you look at a bunch of other teams. Like I'll take Detroit.
Yep.
I don't mean they're top 4 or 5 guys, but like their bottom 6 guys. If they get a shot like Glass would have, they bury it.
Yep. No,
And
you're absolutely
I don't
right.
care. Oh, I don't care who body checks better than someone or who does this better. Put the puck in the net. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit because I've just seen enough of Glass that because I'll tell you, he gets more ice time than Tomasino, and Tomasino deserves way more ice time than Glass, in my opinion.
He has the knack for finishing, and to me, that's not really a learned skill. Like you kind of have it or you don't. And like Glass, I can see the intrigue with Glass. You watch him play, you see him do some really good things, but the stat line doesn't lie, and he doesn't go to the net enough. I'm sorry. I mean, he is far too perimeter of a hockey player to really thrive in the NHL, in my opinion.
He's like Noah Chari, except Noah Chari has heart.
Something like that.
Yeah, like he's a big guy, skates around. He's always in a proper position, but he doesn't. At least the Chari's getting hit with the puck. He's shooting. He's trying.
Mm-hmm.
I know Achari at the end of the game in New York, where it looked like Game 7 in Detroit. He was throwing his body in front of bullets all period. It was actually fun to watch. But no, you're right. That they have too many guys who don't finish. We see that all the time. Really, it's been 3 years in a row with this team. If you look at the numbers, I mean, they still generate a ton of shots on goal, a ton of good looks. They don't finish really, other than Crosby, Raquel, Rust, and Malkin. Bunting when he's in a hot streak. That's about it. They have all these forwards who do some okay things, but you can get away with a couple of guys on your roster who don't finish very well. When it's like 6 or 7 forwards who don't finish well, that's when it becomes a problem. That's when there's so much pressure now on your power play and on your top line to come through every single night. And that's one of their biggest problems, I think, other than general defensive ineptitude.
That is one thing. I don't know who puts a premium on that. I don't think it's Dubas. It seems like Sullivan doesn't care as much about finishing as he does about defense and positioning. Because you just, I know Tampa Bay's loaded, but you got guys come in like rookies. The kid first game in the NHL, he beat Detroit on Saturday. It's like other teams bring up guys that have a cup of coffee, don't know their locker rooms at, and they're burying pucks, and somehow. We don't have our guys come up. It's like, well, they're playing the system. It's like, shoot the puck. You had to be good at scoring at some point. You're
That's
in
right.
the NHL, and not every goaltender's Patrick Waugh. So can you beat somebody?
Well, generally, it's general managers who put more of a premium on guys who can finish. Coaches don't care as much because that doesn't make coaches look bad. It makes coaches look bad when you have somebody like Erik Karlsson, doing Erik Karlsson things, or when you have 2-on-1s against all night. When you have guys who can't finish, people are like, well, coach put them in position to win, but they just didn't finish. He didn't have the talent on his roster. So it's just an organizational issue right now. And it's so bizarre saying that about the Penguins, because when you think of the Penguins, one of the first things you think about historically is goal scoring, finishing touch, just that talent that can't be coached. They've always had it. And now, with the exception of a couple of the great players they still have, they have an organization who I think is filled with plumbers who just don't really have that touch. And that's what happens when you don't pick in the top 10 for a couple of decades. That's unfortunately the way it goes. And those will be the hardest guys for the Penguins to find moving forward. They already have a bunch of good-looking young defensemen in their system. They've got some good-looking young players. It's great. How many guys do they have who are pure goal scorers? Not many. And those are the hardest ones to find. That's Kyle Dubas' single most difficult job for the next couple of years.
I have 2 major points before our illustrious producer changes
Go
to phase
for
2. First one is I'm going to bring up our great friend, your teammate, Rob Rossi. Rob, when you're done writing the Evgeny Malkin biography, can you please do the life and times of Jesse Puljujärvi?
I was wondering if you were going there.
Because what the hell is going on?
I know. He's just gone.
I mean, that's a bigger mystery to me than Roswell. I'm just what I missed it. Is he a bad seed? I don't know, because what I saw was a guy that should have been in our top 6 all year.
I've not heard that he's a bad seed. I think he's a strange seed that marches to the beat of his own drum. I don't think he's a bad guy. There is a history of him frustrating coaches quite a bit. But just watching him play in training camp and watching him play, in the early portion of this season, I thought he was one of their 7 or 8 best forwards. Like, to see a guy that big and that fast who was creating some offense, who played with a physical edge, it was quite a mystery to me as to why he was out of the lineup. I know he took a couple of penalties that Sully didn't like. Boy, if that's all it takes to not crack this bottom 6, something seems a little off to me. But obviously, he fell out of favor. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And I didn't hear any specific stories that of him being insubordinate or anything of that nature. But he's gone. I wish him luck. I know he went through a lot with the double hip surgery. That's not an easy thing for a hockey player to return from. He looks like he can play, but he wore out his welcome in Edmonton too. I mean, we've seen this with this guy over the years. There's something about him that rubs coaches the wrong way. But man, you see all that untapped potential, and it makes you wonder what the issue is.
If he just got Cody Glass's ice time, he'd have 20 goals.
Might.
Do you think he's looking to go overseas? Because I mean, I might be reading this wrong, but isn't that condition basically like a mutual agreement? Like,
it's how it came across. It's the same thing that Brandon Saad did a couple of weeks ago when he just said, I don't need that $5 million. I'd prefer to go sign with someone else, and that gets people out of salary cap messes. And the way it was worded by his agent, it made it sound like he wants to go play in Europe.
okay,
maybe that's the best thing for him, even if he wants to come back to the NHL at some point just to get ice time and to play. That's probably what he wants more than anything. But it was a very odd saga. And there's obviously bigger things going on than Jesse Puljujärvi, but I thought he could have helped the Penguins. Obviously, Dubas thought that when he gave him a 2-year contract last season at this time. But for whatever reason, I don't think Mike Sullivan was ever a huge fan.
If it's bad penalties, then I mean Michael Bunting should be in Wilkes-Barre.
yeah.
And
God.
I'm really, really, really sick of him now. I please go with the deadline. To me, he's not a winning player. He's just not a winning player. He makes too many stupid mental errors.
He does
when it matters. And I've said this for 15 years everywhere. I don't like little guys that stir the pot and then don't back it up. And it's like, you know what? That's just a cancer on the team. Don't need him. We just don't need him. We really don't need him.
He's a weird guy. Like, he gets streaky and he'll score a bunch of goals, and he's scrappy, and you kind of like that about him. But you're right. I don't think the hockey IQ is particularly high. He has taken a handful of just awful penalties this season. I mean, penalties, like really dumb penalties at the wrong time. I still remember when he went offside on Gino's highlight reel goal for absolutely no reason. You're right. He's a funny guy because physically he's nothing impressive. And usually those guys who are kind of small, undersized, whatever, they have the brain power that puts them over the top. He doesn't necessarily have that as a hockey player either. And yet he scores his 20 goals a year. He's doing something right. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, Joe. And nobody's really talked about him in terms of a guy who could be dealt by the deadline. I think he would make a lot of sense, actually. He makes a good chunk of money. You could probably get something for him. I'm sure there are teams that would be interested. I have not heard his name in connection with any teams, but it would not shock me if he were to go. I think he's the kind of guy that the Penguins don't really need long term. He would be on my radar for sure.
Yeah, I think he might get something back, and I just don't think he's part of the future. I just don't like the way he plays. I really taking stupid penalties is just. Oh, he can score on the power play. Well, that's fantastic. If you can't score with Gino and Sid and Rust, literally 4 Hall of Famers out there passing you the puck. I don't think you're the number one option people are looking at. You better be able to bury the puck. And then it's like, and and Gino's out here, so he is a disappearing act. So basically, you can play with a top 50 player of all time. Well, that's fantastic.
Really
like,
yeah,
give me a break.
I believe Michelle Willette could also. That doesn't or whatever.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, but and then the other point I wanted to make, this one is a serious one, and one that comes from my heart, and every Penguins fan should agree with. But he was a friend of mine. Is I want to say that Kevin Acklin, not being even with Dubas in charge of the money side or whatever his actual job was, is a huge loss, not only to me personally, but to the Penguins organization and the city of Pittsburgh. He's a Pittsburgher through and through. He was the last link to Mario and his team, and he only put Pittsburgh first. He's the one that brought Jágr back, and he was always pro Penguins, pro fans, and now we're going to be run by Fenway completely without Acklin kind of being the firewall. And he was a great guy, and he's still a great guy. I mean, it's under the radar, but it's a huge loss to everything associated with the Penguins.
Yeah, kind of surprising news, quite frankly. And the interesting thing about Kevin, of all the people affiliated with ownership in any way, he was really the only one with Pittsburgh ties at all. And maybe some people roll their eyes at that, but we're all from Pittsburgh. We know how it is. People from Pittsburgh are a lot more comfortable when people with Pittsburgh ties are running the show. That's reality. And now he will be gone. I guess he's still serving as an advisor until the end of the season, whatever that means. But this is a surprising departure, and I certainly wonder about the organization's relationship with Jágr. It's very well known at this point. They want Jágr back in the organization in some capacity. And Jágr and Kevin Acklin had certainly developed a relationship. Yags really likes him. I know they communicate a lot. That doesn't mean Jágr won't still be coming over again and being part of the relationship, but I hope that hasn't been wounded in any way, because I know how much it means to Penguins fans to have 68 around.
Hey, he looked outside his office window and saw someone trying to spray paint on Lemieux's statue, and he ran out there and saved it. You think one of those Fenway guys in a sport coat's going to do that? Give me a break.
Yeah, it does bother me.
I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible on every level. I'm sorry.
No, it's just way too much Boston taking care of a Pittsburgh team.
Well, in FSG, listen, I mean, regardless of where they're from, that they are hands-off owners to the point that I know it bothers a lot of people. I'm not going to call them absentee owners. Maybe that's too harsh. But we don't really know what the end goal is with them. We know that they are corporate to the extreme, and that rubs a lot of people the wrong way, quite frankly. And, yeah, I know they have money and they spend to the salary cap. You talk to people around the organization, you will hear stories of them nickel and diming their way around Pittsburgh quite a bit, to the point that it's irritated a lot of people in the organization. I won't name names, but I hear it from a lot of people. Like, guess what they did now? They took this away. Guess what they did now? They took this away. So it's something to be aware of.
Hey, the salary cap's going up, and they're looking for investors. I didn't think Peter Gammons and Fenway Sports would be at Coinstar.
Yeah.
That's funny. No, and you're right. That's not coincidental that story broke the same week that the information about the cap news broke.
Yeah, I'm couldn't be happier that Mario, got his money, because he deserves everything. He deserves everything he can get out of Pittsburgh. Every single thing. They could build 10 statues. It wouldn't be enough, in my opinion. And I'm glad Mr. Burkle, who actually saved the Penguins, got to make more money. I always said he owns all the groceries right here. You could raise the price of milk, Ron. I don't care.
Yeah. The Penguins in Pittsburgh.
But man, I just wish they still own the team. And I wonder if Burkle can just get back in and just buy him back.
Guys, I always say it. I hear from season ticket holders all the time. And the number one complaint they have, it's not about Sully, it's not about Dubas, it's not about the players. All I ever hear from people is, I wish Mario were still around. I wish Mario were still in charge. I felt better when he was. And it might not be like that in other cities, because he is more synonymous with Pittsburgh than other owners obviously are with those teams. But the season ticket holders, the people who make the Penguins money, who have been around the longest, they like him around. That's just the way it is. They're not comfortable with his ownership. I don't know what that means for the future, but I think it's a relevant thing.
Yeah,
I think it's a totally relevant thing.
Yeah.
I don't see them blowing every 2-0 lead when Mario's up there sipping a glass of wine.
That's true.
it matters a little bit.
I just miss seeing Mario and Pierre sipping their wine in the booth during games.
Yeah.
They'd always had the red out, They're
The big guy. You gotta have the big guy. So, like I said this on my DVE segment, though, maybe Yager would buy in. It'd be better though if Kessel bought in with some poker money and set up there and ate hot dogs in the booth. I think
I'd be
that
fine
would be
with
great.
that.
Yeah, it's just they need losing Kevin is just a huge deal.
No, I think it is too.
They need a link somehow back.
I know,
back to Pittsburgh. Just to keep, because let's face it, they're an investment. Okay, it's gonna be like having Fredo Rooney. Oh, we went 10 and then we went 10 and 7. It'll be like that. Like, we went 500. Just picking up the pay. Like, we made the money. It'll be like that when they say, hey, look, we broke even. We this and this. You want a guy like Mario that would cut off his hand to win a playoff series. That's the kind of look at the Eagles owner. Like, you need a guy like that to win in professional sports, because you need this in sports, because the mega corporations don't win anymore. When's Toronto won? When have the Rangers won?
No, I agree. You don't need ownership.
The guy that goes down there, hits someone in the head. Hey, great game. You need that touch.
No, I agree. You don't need ownership to be like Jerry Jones. You don't need to be that extreme. But you said it, Joe. Through 3 years of owning the Penguins, FSG, they have treated them like an investment and nothing else. That's reality, and that becomes a problem at some point.
I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring here. Here's the problem. I actually legitimately had this thought whenever Kevin Acklin was stepping down and they're selling part of the team. Like, people that don't know, I mean, one of the things I do is manage a couple different businesses, and I'm good at finding ways to make money for people with money. I just, unfortunately, like I said to a friend, don't have any billionaire friends that would be able to step in, because I'm like, this would make so much sense. Could you imagine just walking in, buying the Penguins, putting Mario back in place? Like, it's really sad. It makes me sad that it's just, it feels like without Kevin there, like you said, Joe, it was the last connection to Mario, and it's just gonna feel like some ghost organization. Like, they might as well just have the suite empty and like the lights turned off, because that's what it feels like running the ship. So it frustrates me, but anyways, so if I run into $1 billion soon, I'll let everybody know by announcing that I'm buying the Penguins, because we'll the Two for Talking, it'll be owned by Two for Talking. Wouldn't that be fantastic? But anyway, so Kevin Acklin, we appreciate everything you did for the organization, and not all doom and gloom, everybody. We'll figure it out. But in the meantime, that'll do it for the first segment. We'll come back. We'll talk about the Four Nations face-off in the Super Bowl to wrap up. But before we do that, Mr. Bill Neofis, he might have a message. I'm sure he was watching the Super Bowl yesterday with some serious attention.
In fact, Bill was particularly irked by Tom Brady's commentary, as he always is. Bill, I think everybody's welcome at Neofis Insurance, our great sponsor. But I don't know that any member of the New England Patriots would be, because Bill gets very tired of the Gronks and the Bradys of the world monopolizing his television during the playoffs. And I think we can all respect that. You know why? Because this is a local Pittsburgh company. They don't want to deal with, the Tom Bradys of the world. It's just the way it is. Trust me, he was blowing up my phone all night. Another Brady reference. Like, I know, it's awful. So no, Bill's the greatest. His insurance group, these are unbelievable people. They've been doing it in Pittsburgh since 1960. So you do the math. They are a generational company in Pittsburgh. They will get you the best insurance. And what's great about them, it doesn't matter what kind of insurance you're talking. They do it all: homeowner insurance, life insurance, car insurance, apartment renters insurance, you name it. They do everything. So, and they do it with a smile. And I've been there. They are the warmest people. we always talk about we don't like dealing with insurance people because who would? These people are the exception. They really are. So it's the Neophis Insurance Group, 412-364-3388. Give them a call. Bill will set you straight.
Yes. Thank you, Bill. And we
Thanks,
appreciate your
Bill.
support. Go ahead, Joe.
No, because we're going to do the Super Bowl for the third segment, so I'll save what I think about Mr. Brady.
Yeah. So coming up here, obviously, the Four Nations face-off starts in 2 days on Wednesday. And I'm looking at the odds on FanDuel, just to throw this out there. To win the Four Nation face-off, Finland is in last with a plus 950.
Yeah, they're banged up too.
Yeah. Sweden plus 430. Then you have USA plus 160 and Canada plus 140. I'll be honest, I kind of was surprised that Canada was favored because their goaltending is not great. This is not Martin Brodeur. This is not Patrick Waugh. I don't know. What do you guys think about that ranking and the odds from Vegas?
Well, I do think that a lot of people instinctively vote on Canada, so that probably helps the odds a little bit. They're probably getting like the Steelers or Cowboys point spread swing a little bit because a lot of people are used to picking Canada to win these tournaments. I think Canada and U.S. are pretty much dead even. Canada's top heavy, right? You've got McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon, and McCarr. Nobody can match that top four. The American roster, however, I think is considerably deeper. And with Hellebuck, you have the better goaltending. Here's what I think, Joe. I picked Team USA to win, not of any great bias. I think the USA and Canada are so equal that they're probably going to play twice in this tournament. If they play in the finals, they'll play twice. And I just think it's unlikely that either team wins both games. I think they probably split. And the first game is going to be in Montreal Saturday night, USA versus Canada. I bet Canada wins that game playing on Canadian soil. That's just my guess. I don't know that they'll win 2 in a row against the U.S. in the championships in Boston, which will make it like a home game for Team USA. So that's basically my rationale for picking the Americans. It's dead even, but I think they're definitely the 2 best teams in the tournament.
They're definitely the 2 best teams in the tournament. I was going to say my underdog until Heiskanen got hurt was Finland, because I actually think that down the middle, 1 through 4, Finland might be second to Canada. And no knock on Eichel and the Americans, but I'm in the space now, but it's literally Barkov, Lundell, Rupe Hintz, and I think Sebastian Aho.
That's pretty good.
Especially Barkov, Lundell, and Rupe Hintz. No offense to Aho. I mean, Aho's great. I just mean size-wise, to just lock down a team. To get a 1 goal, because it's 1 game. So whatever you get a power play, you get a goal, and all of a sudden you lock it down. But with Heiskanen being hurt and a couple other guys on the D line getting hurt, I'm not as big on Finland. I think Sweden is not. Especially now with Sweden going to have goaltending issues with Allmark only playing 1 game in like the last 2 months. They're talking about the Gustafsson guy. Give me a break. Give me a break on Gustafsson. And that's my thing. I don't know who to root for because I really don't want Sid. I didn't want Sid hurt. Obviously, but I kind of wanted Sid to not be able to play just so I could really go all in on America. But I am kind of pissed at Sully and Billy G for not picking Rust. It kind of makes me on the whole thing. It really, really does. It really does. Like, and the people that are talking about like who, what, better than Rust? Give me a break.
Yeah, it's always an interesting thing for Penguins fans. This dates back to the Mario years. I remember in 2002, I was still in college when Canada played the U.S. in the gold medal game. I was cheering for Canada because I wanted to see Mario win a gold medal. Like, I didn't really give a shit. He was born in Montreal and not here. That was my favorite hockey player. And I think a lot of Penguins fans deal with that. If you're a Penguins fan, I'm going to guess that you love Sidney Crosby, and that's perfectly reasonable. And this is a big deal to him. This is, the last chance he will probably ever have to represent Canada on Canadian soil. And that's an enormous deal to him. He has played for Canada in 50 international games. Canada's record in those games is 45-5. He has won 25 straight games while wearing the Canadian sweater. And the pressure that's on him in these games, it'll be intensified even more so in the Olympics. It is enormous. He is the captain, and there comes a certain responsibility with that. The only person who's actually dealing with more pressure, though, is Connor McJesus himself, because McDavid's never won anything. And he hasn't had much of a chance internationally because of COVID and everything else that shut down the NHL guys going to the Olympics. But still, he's never won internationally. He's never won the Cup in 10 seasons now with the Oilers. And he never even won anything in the Ontario Hockey League and junior hockey in Erie. So if he doesn't win, yeah, I think he deals with a lot more heat than Sidney Crosby does. He's the guy now. This is supposed to be his time. So that certainly is an interesting element to all of this. But it's still a chance to get to watch Sid play in high-stakes hockey, and whether he's 100% or not. I think if you're a Penguin fan or a Crosby fan, no matter who you're cheering for, you're going to appreciate seeing him play in that environment.
That is one thing that is true, though. The older I get, or the more I pay attention to Canadian media, maybe that's my problem. I really don't want Canada to win it, except for Sid. And especially with all those blowhards, they can't wait to trade Sid. Too,
oh, yes.
And how much they like the Senators. That's what kills me. How'd Billy Guerin pick Sanderson over a New Jersey kid over over the other the other Hall of Famer on the Washington Capitals? Like, how is Sanderson playing instead of, I'm spacing his name because
Carlson?
The other Carlson. Yeah. Like, what has Sanderson ever won? What has he ever done?
And
over Carlson? Carlson's incredible.
He's curious. I don't know how much say Sullivan had on the roster, if it was strictly Guerin, if they worked together. I was shocked that Russ wasn't included on that team. We've talked about that a lot. And you talk about a bottom six guy who has a bit of a history in playing in big games against tough competition. You're not going to do any better than that guy. So yeah, there were certain pieces of the roster construction that was weird. And are you suggesting the Canadian media is a little smug, Joe? I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, I want to get. I mean, but let's repeat though. Like, how did John Carlson, the number one defenseman on maybe the best team in hockey, not get picked over a kid who in Ottawa? Wait, someone hit Billy G in the head? No.
Maybe
I don't want him over Dubas. I don't think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it was a strange choice. That certainly got my attention. I would agree with you. And I
would take Grzelcyk over Sanderson.
I wonder how much the rosters will change between now and the Olympics in Italy next February. It's fascinating to see how much of an impact this tournament will have. If so-and-so doesn't play well, does that mean he's out next year? I don't know how that will work. But it's going to be interesting. Like, I don't really care about the tour. It's not the Olympics, right? But it's still the best players in the world going at it. And I think we all want to see USA and Canada in the final. Let's be honest. That's why they put the four nations together. I mean, with all due respect to our friends from Sweden and Finland, that's why they did it.
Here's another reason why those Canadian smug MFers, they didn't invite Russia. So Canada, when you do win, you can put your asterisk next to the victory, because you know what? You're not proving you're the best team in the world. You're not, because you're not playing Russia. And if you're not playing Russia, hell, if you're not playing Chechnya or whatever the hell, someone corrected me, wherever the hell Yager's from, wherever they call it now, it's like you're not even playing where Kopitar's from. Give me a break.
Right, it's just
like a hot goaltender from Kopitar's country might steal a game, but not playing Russia is a disgrace. And they're just hiding behind this war, which they didn't even probably send any troops, even in this war. So give me a break. You're just afraid to play Russia, and that's the whole. They had this whole tournament to win something, and they're not even playing Russia. What a joke!
No, I agree with you. I think it invalidates the entire tournament. You literally have like 5 of the 10 best goalies in the world are from Russia.
Yeah.
And not to mention, this might be it internationally for Ovechkin and Malkin and this great generation of players who have never won at all in the Olympics or internationally. You know how badly they want one more chance. They're not going to get it. I agree with you. The whole premise of the tournament is silly. Like, I'm excited to watch it because I like good hockey. But why not just do the old Canada Cup and have 8 countries involved or what? I don't understand it. And other than that, just logistically, there are so few games in this tournament. Like, each team plays each other once, and then there's a championship game. So a couple of these teams are only playing 3 games the whole tournament, and we're making such a big deal about it. I understand it's hard to shut down the season for any longer, but that's the whole problem with this. It's just the lack of games. You have one bad night, and that's pretty much it. It's almost like single elimination.
I mean, this whole tournament is just invented so that Gretzky has one more thing over Ovechkin. Oh, well, Ovechkin never won a world championship, or it's just.
Boy,
stupid.
You're not wrong.
I'm 1,000% right on that.
You are.
I mean, it's really like, how did Bettman, what did all of his Canadian thugs at this player safety division rough him up and say, you got to do this for us? I mean, it's a stupid tournament. It really is. Always, and someone's going to get really hurt, and then they're going to be, well, they shouldn't have done it.
That's right.
It's just, I don't know, man.
You're right about the Gretzky thing too. I was just in Canada over the weekend, and it's amazing how often you can watch SportsCenter in Canada, and they'll just say, and a reminder, the last time to do that, somebody did that was Wayne Gretzky in 1983. They can't help themselves. They have to sprinkle him in at every opportunity. It's very clearly by design. I can only compare it to how, like, Major League Baseball in the 50s and 60s, like, they were still so obsessed with preserving Babe Ruth's records and, the asterisk beside Roger Maris's name. It's really very similar. And we're going to see that intensify as Ovechkin gets closer and closer to his record. There's no doubt about that. And the fact that he's from Russia makes it times 10. Trust me, I know enough people from Canada. I'm not saying they're not in general accepting people, but I know an awful lot of them who do not like Russians and do not like Russian hockey players. They don't even hide it. And in Ovechkin's case, Malkin's case, it's absolutely true.
It's a shame that John Cherry's off the air. I'd love to see his reaction to Gretzky's record getting beat by Ovechkin.
Well, in good form.
It's 1,000. Besides the 5 goaltenders, I mean, literally, 5 or 6 of the top 20 forwards, period, are Russian. And
absolutely.
Besides the 2 first ballot Hall of Famers, besides Gino and Ovi, we said you got Cooch, you got Kirill, you got Breadman. Give me a break. You think it's all Canada? It makes me sick because you think the Kachuk brothers are afraid to play Russia? No way.
The Kachuk brothers will be frothing at the mouth for Russia.
Yeah,
they probably are. They probably are anyway. I mean,
I know. It's just Canada ducking them. They're just ducking the Russians. It's sickening. It really is.
And I want to,
I'm sorry, Corey, but then to hide behind this whole, they're in a war. Yeah, like Ovi and Gino started the war. Give me a break.
Yeah. You can't blame the guys based on where they're born. To pick at this scab a little bit, maybe this will get us some heat up in Canada, but so be it. We talked about it. I forget a while ago, whenever we first talked about this tournament. And so I actually wrote about it a little bit with Crosby being hurt. I wrote about it in the Hockey Writers, not to plug. I'm not trying to plug, but anyways, about, is this it for Canada? Because we talked about that. We were like, what if they lose this? What if they don't win the Olympic gold next year? All the players moving down here, Canadian dollars weaker. Players don't want to live in Canada. Players don't want to play for Canadian teams. More kids are born in the United States. I just don't know if Canada's ready for that world. And we could really be there. This could be it.
Well, I mean, yeah, they can't develop goalies anymore either, which is a little bit of a problem too. I just wanted to throw that out there. No, but this has been the golden age of Canadian hockey the last 25, 30 years. It absolutely has. Is the United States catching them? Maybe. We've been saying that for a while, though. You still have to beat them.
Yep.
right? And they've come so close in 2002 and 2010 and a couple of other 2014 semifinals. You still have to beat them though to kind of topple the monster. But we will see what the future holds. I don't know, but I always go back to Crosby and how much it means to him. His legacy is pretty much impeccable. I told you his record when he plays for Canada. If he pulls this off, if they win this tournament and win the Olympics next year, that does things for his legacy that we can't even calculate right now.
Walk on water if he doesn't already.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. He already does, but that would only add to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think when this generation, Sid, McKinnon, McCarr, and the Rat, Sid and the Rat and McKinnon, McCarr, like, yeah, I mean, we talked about this a couple months ago. Like, just all the kids that are playing hockey started playing hockey in America. Now they're coming from LA, they're coming from Dallas, they're coming from Florida,
St. Louis.
It's Pittsburgh. It's just there's just more natural athletes. And better coaching down here now. It's just whatever. They're the 51st state according to Mr. Trump. I mean, it's like, there are not that many people up there.
We have 300 million more people. So if we really focus on hockey, that would be a problem for them. That
would be over real quick. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Who knows? We still got to get there. But yeah, the last two World Juniors, United States won. Canada wasn't in the top four. Like that to me is like a mile marker. That's like okay, this is where we are on the road to taking over Canada. 2 straight times not finishing in the top four, and USA wins.
Well, in like 12 years when they'll be like, oh, well, they'll do like a 4 nations. It'll be like Canada, Ecuador, like Egypt, and some other country. And they'll just find out some political way. Well, we tariff them, and these guys are in this war, and they won't have to play anybody then.
Canada will find a way for all the games to be played in Canada. That's for sure. We know that. As they always do in the World Juniors. Yes.
And that new arena in Ottawa.
Yeah.
They'll be like Mighty Ducks 2 whenever they were playing like Trinidad or something like that, But all right, that'll do it for the second segment. We'll wrap up here with a quick recap of the Super Bowl on the third segment of Two for Talking. Welcome back to the third segment of Two for Talking. And guys, so we had the Super Bowl yesterday, and I think it went just the way everybody would have wanted it to go, because we hate seeing Flyer fans happy in any way, shape, or form, but at least they're not wearing their Flyers gear at the game. So that is the benefit. You can kind of lie to yourself and forget that maybe, think to yourself, maybe they don't like hockey. So maybe they're just, a Phillies and an Eagles fan. But I really enjoyed watching Patrick Mahomes get drubbed. And I will tell you, and a lot of people have said this online, if the NFL didn't screw up 2 years ago and have that grass field that was a sheet of ice, this is exactly the result that would have happened with the Eagles defense versus the Chiefs last time. And I enjoyed the beatdown. But what do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question who the physically superior football team was. And I think going into it, we all thought, well, the Chiefs have the better quarterback and the better coach, but the Eagles are more talented everywhere else. And that's probably all true. But that talent level, the difference was pretty noticeable throughout, right? It was actually boring because that game was over in the second quarter, and I think the Chiefs knew it. And I think you could see it in their body language by the second half. So I think most of America was cheering for Philly, which isn't usually the case. But I think the Chiefs' fatigue was very real. And I wonder, listen, they've won 3, taking nothing away from the Chiefs. That's quite a legacy. But I do wonder if this hurts their legacy a little bit, just to get your ass kicked on that level. Like the Steelers of the 70s or 49ers of the 80s or Cowboys of the 90s. They never lost like that in a Super Bowl where they were just embarrassed. That was just a physical domination.
It was an absolute ass kicking. I'm so happy for Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I think he's a great dude.
He seems like it,
guy, a class act. What happened to him in Alabama was, he just got beat up by Tua and they won the national championship and Saban looked like a genius. But Hurts took it like a man, and he's just a great human being. So I was so happy for him. And I can't stand Andy Reid. Mahomes is okay. I kind of like greatness, But
Yeah.
the Kelsey brothers, like I said, they're worse than the Melendez brothers. I can't stand those a-holes. And I just enough of him, enough of his stupid brother. Like, he's funny. He's funny for a center. I'm sure he could beat Dermontti Dawson in a joke off. Like, give me a break.
Yeah,
I really can't stand those two. But they got their asses kicked.
Yeah, I disliked Travis Kelce before it was cool to dislike him. I just wanted to say, but I also will say, like, I was actually driving home from Canada last night. I've seen my kids this weekend, and I was listening to some of the post-game interviews. And I don't often say this because people in my line of work, we get pretty jaded, I think, with dealing with the cliches and the same interview talk. I listened to very lengthy interviews with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. And if you can't like those two, there's something wrong with you. They are just the most likable, genuine people. And really, that whole Eagles team, except for their coach, who I think is kind of obnoxious, but like really every other guy that I heard interviewed that I've, studied at all on that team, I kind of like them. I know I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'm not supposed to like Philly things. I get that. But man, Hurts and Barkley, if those are the guys that are representing your team, not only are they great players, and give Hurts credit too. Barkley gets all the credit in that offensive line, and rightfully so. But Hurts is the guy who won that game last night, along with their defense. He was very much the rightful MVP. But really classy guys. I mean, I just love how they speak about themselves and their life stories and their teams. And the rightful team won. There's no question who the best team was. I think that's been proven. And I don't want to say the Chiefs were a fraudulent 15-2 because that just sounds funny. If you go 15-2, you're doing something right. But man, how many games did they win because of blocked field goals and questionable penalties? They were not the same team this year, and I think the empire might be coming to a close for them.
Yeah, I didn't really care who won, but as much as I go on the radio everywhere and say, inside every Eagle fan is a Flower fan, I kind of was rooting for the Eagles because I'm really sick of Kelce, and I'm just sick of kind of the whole thing. Although, like I said, I like Mahomes, but I want to get into the Tom Brady discussion.
Yes,
because I watch every football game unless it's Al Michaels. And or I know I'm in a minority, probably even more than in Pittsburgh. I like Collinsworth, so sometimes
he's good.
But I love Al Michaels. So, but other than that, I never have the sound on. But I literally, so I didn't have the sound on for the first 24-0. I'm like, I want to see what Brady says about can you come back? He never brought it up. You're literally paying the guy $750 million for what? His expertise in a Super Bowl, for talking about the greatest thing that anyone's ever done was his Super Bowl comeback. He doesn't talk about it. Now, I never got into the whole thing. This unknown tight end from North Carolina lost his job. Oh, boo, 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 boo. You know what happens when Bill Burr shows up? You get bumped off the lineup. That's what happens. Like, here's Tom Brady. I'm sorry you're going to be calling the Jacksonville Tampa Bay game. Bye. It's like that's life in the big city, you tight end. But then to have Brady and then not use him to talk about coming back in the Super Bowl, to me was ludicrous. And I don't know who the other guy was, but it was like the JV announcers. Like, they should have just paid Buck and Aikman or Al Michaels to show up. It's the Super Bowl. You got those clowns.
Yeah, Kevin Burkhardt.
I actually thought Brady would be pretty good in that role. He obviously a bright guy who knows the game inside and out better than anyone, but I thought he was really very average at best and certainly not worthy of being on the number one crew. And I find, I watch a lot of NFL games. I hate games on Fox. I always have. I think the production stinks. I think the broadcasters aren't as good. The camera shots aren't as good, like all the way top to bottom. I felt that way for decades. I don't know what it is, but I just think the CBS and NBC broadcasts are 100 times better. I hate when the Super Bowl is on Fox. I just nothing about it. The pregame show, nothing.
I thought Brady was as good as any other person that's not Collinsworth or Aikman. Or Herb Street.
And Aikman's gotten a lot better, by the way.
On the rest of the game, like, I thought he was fine. I just couldn't believe even a producer didn't tell the pretty boy announcer, hey, ask him about what it's like to be down 24-0. Like, you can't, because if Brady would then be like, well, when then it'd be like, oh, he's talking about himself. So I can see where he might have not even wanted to say that. But just to not tee it up is ludicrous to me.
One time. Just one.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he was down 28-3 in a Super Bowl and came back and won. So, as Bill Belichick's girlfriend did you see the shirt she had on the night before the
Super Bowl champs?
Yeah, she had her Falcons Super Bowl champ shirt on, and only a few of those were made, I guess. I don't know how she got her hands on that, but
I think she was like 12 when that game was played.
16 probably. Yeah, fair, close enough. But yeah, so that game was on everybody's mind already. So you would think Brady would have mentioned it. That
and one more point. The box, the score, like the score,
the score bug. Yeah.
Oh my God,
the score bug was infuriating to me because it wouldn't show you if it would say third down, but it wouldn't say like 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 7. It just said 3rd down and then the time clock. Like, hey, I'm not calling delay of game penalties. Show me the down and the distance.
Hey, listen, I've hated games on Fox. This goes all the way back to the glowing puck in the 90s. I hated the goddamn puck is black and the ice is white. I don't see why it's that hard to find it. Yeah. I don't need a purple streak on my TV screen that actually prohibits me from seeing the puck now. So that goes back to the mid 90s. I couldn't stand it then. So I have never changed my opinion on that.
I've always felt that Fox has like a gray tinted filter on their game.
Yes. So I don't know what it is. Yes. Absolutely.
And I can never figure it out. And I've actually done like deep dives on this. So like I don't know if they still do, but at least up to a handful of years ago, they were broadcasting in 720p instead of 1080, like HD. So like it's still the same, ratio, just a less like quality image. And it's like you're broadcasting the Super Bowl and it's not in full HD in like 2018. Like
you can always tell, like in like the Nance and Romo game, they always have the different kids, like the portrait camera view they always use. Like it absolutely is more crisp and impressive. Like I don't know why Fox can't do the same stuff. Maybe it's a Yinzer thing. I don't know. Like 20 years ago, my mom would call me and say, "No, I don't like the Steelers game being on Fox this week. I just don't like those games on Fox." And I knew what she meant because I didn't really like it either. So
yeah, Fox games are garbage. I was bummed when I don't know they broadcasting across the board because Tony Romo was great when he was sitting there going like, "Hey, this is what this is the pressure they're showing. Right. So they should look over here." And now he's just weird. And
maybe either muted him or he just stopped doing his homework.
I didn't like that though. I didn't like that. No, because it's like the guy calling out the set list before the show. Can I just watch
that's fair.
I can see that. But now, I guess when you took that away from him, though, now you're like he's just like a weird dude. Like it feels weird the whole broadcast. I can't believe that. Like that Kevin Burkhardt. Nothing against him, but like he's
just blah.
Yeah, he's guy. Blah. And like you have a guy. I want to actually listen to the radio broadcast because Gene Steratore was doing the ref stuff on there. But Kevin Harlan was doing the radio broadcast. And I don't know if you guys know specifically which voice he is, but he does a lot of March Madness. He is incredible. Like, I'll have to find the video and send it to you guys. Like, he is unreal. There's this video of him announcing the March Madness game. And it's just, he makes every play sound like it's the biggest play.
He's what people think Gus Johnson is, but he's actually not. It's actually Kevin Harlan.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Kevin Harlan and Ian Eagle might be the two best play guys right now.
I wish it was Ian Eagle.
Really good.
I'm not a big, Romo, but see, like, then he replaced Phil Simms, who I thought was terrible.
Yes.
Phil Simms, before there was a ref in the booth, he just agreed with every call. It's like, Phil, they paying you to, you can't, you have to agree with the ref every single time. He would agree with the ref. It's like, and then Jim Nance is the Tom Hanks of broadcasting. Like that guy walks on water. Enough of Jim Nance, please.
Yeah, I have to say, Buck and Aikman they've really grown on me over the years. I never used to be a huge fan, but I actually think they're really good now.
Yeah, it's almost like they're the best of the bunch. But I do like those guys. I do like Aikman and Buck. It's but I wanted to say, I don't know if you caught any of the commercials, but and Antonio Banderas let himself go because my wife is like, "Is that Antonio Banderas?" I go, "No, it's not him. he looks terrible. And I go, and it's fake Macho Man. She's like, fake. Yeah, Macho Man's dead. And then she Googled it, and that was Antonio Banderas. That was the real Antonio Banderas.
I didn't see that one. How about Seal as a seal? That was kind of interesting and bizarre. Like
I didn't see that one. I saw the Matt Damon one was pretty good. I like that one.
I do feel like the quality is not what it once was of the. Maybe we're just dating ourselves, but I feel like 20 years ago the commercials during the Super Bowl were far, far better.
Well, they push them out now ahead of time. It's just like, it used to be a thing. You're like, I'm sitting there watching, and like last night I was like, oh, I got to go. The kids want this, so I'm gonna go do that during a commercial break. Like you would never do that during a Super Bowl,
right?
So yeah, it's different, but yeah, I don't know. Super Bowl. I know we won't be there anytime soon.
At least the Chiefs lost. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you guys watch the halftime show?
I did not.
No. How about you?
I know. I had it on mute because I wanted to get back to. I just had it on mute. But whatever. I don't. It's like if you're under 30, you're gonna get it. If you're over 30, you're not gonna like it, and that's just the way it is. I mean, it's like the last time. I loved when Tom Petty did it because I love Tom Petty. I love when the Stones did it because I love the Stones. The Who were terrible, and I like the Who. I can admit the Who were terrible. Pete Townsend, when he woke up in a pub, they fucking threw him on stage. I mean, but I do admit that I do like when there's hot chicks dancing. I can take that way more than a dude walking around. But the Snoop Dogg a couple of years ago when Snoop did, that was pretty badass. Snoop's whenever they had all the LA guys, that was pretty cool.
That's right.
Here's the I saw all these people online saying that they were going to protest and not watch the Kendrick Lamar, and this just shows my age. I'm like, I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. I could not pick a song of his off the radio. I have no idea.
I'm the same. And I know he's very popular.
Apparently he has beef with Drake. I don't even know. Apparently
I know about that.
And I'm just like, maybe I have my head in the sand. I don't know, but I'm also 38, so like I am so far removed from what's popular now. So whatever.
Right? Yeah, we're old. I mean, that's right. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you asked me who Kendrick Lamar was, I'd like, does he play for the Houston Rockets?
Yeah, like I honestly actually I thought he was a basketball player for a while because there was this Kendrick Lamar Drake beef. And like I know Drake always went to basketball games and stuff like that, so I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe. I mean, I have no idea. So who knows? But the Chiefs lost, and I hit the first quarter square on a Super Bowl.
Did you?
For the first time ever? I had 7-0.
Look who's buying the Penguins,
and almost hit the third quarter too.
I was once in a living room with Mark Cabali when he had the square. If the Patriots would have gone perfect and the score ended when they were winning at the end, he would have won some absurd amount of money. But then Plex ruined his night and cost him thousands, and I was jumping up and down like an idiot, and he looked like he wanted to cry. One of my favorite Super Bowl memories.
Good stuff. But well, that'll do.
He's got to be the sickest man in America.
He probably was that night. That'll do it for us on Two for Talking this week. We appreciate you guys. Follow us along on Twitter. Email the show, contact@twofortalking.com, and we'll talk to you next
Low
week.
Lev Brewery, March 8th.
Low Lev Brewery, March 8th. We'll hopefully have more info on that because I want to talk something after the show real quick. But go check out Joe's show, Low Lev Brewery. It's great beer, great comedy, good times. We'll talk to you guys next week.